Hey guys, and welcome to my very first live stream. I've just got a couple of things I need to click at the moment and then we can get into it. So if you just bear with me 1 second, just waiting for Tina's computer to log in to see whether or not it's up and running, because I am not sure if we are live at the moment. If we are live, guys, if someone can let me know in the comments, because I haven't got a clue here at the moment. Hey Spencer, can you hear me okay? Fantastic. Alright guys, welcome to my very first live stream, and I have to say I've just got home from work and it's been a mad rush to set everything up. Now, I was going to originally do this live stream earlier on in the year, a couple of weeks back, but I never got around to it. So what we're going to do today, we're going to talk a lot about soils and things like that. So we're going to get on with it now in a moment. But first off, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Tony O'Neill. This is UK Here We Grow. And on this channel, we deal with all things gardening, poultry keeping and beekeeping. If it's your first time here, consider hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified each time I put out new content just like this. So guys, well, means there's a few of you in here. I'm not going to know what everybody is, so put your name in the comment section so I know who you are, and we're going to get into some content here today. So the reason for the live stream, guys, is because originally I was going to do this when we hit 50,000 subscribers, and I was made up for it in 50,000 subscribers. And as some of you are aware, on the very day that we were going to go live for our first time ever, Sky decided to absolutely cut my internet connection, and it took them nearly 6 weeks to get it back up and running. So we never had that sort of connection for ages. Since then, we surpassed that and we got back to 60,000 subscribers. So I put out a post about a week and a half ago, and that post I put out was saying, you know, thanks very much for 60,000. We'll get there and we'll do this live. Well, today we're at 62,900. So and we've got them 2,900 since the 10th of September, so you know we're growing pretty quick, and I just want to put a heart-warm thank you out to every single one of you that has subscribed and supported the channel over the years. And it's taken us a while to get here, but the growth over the last year has been tremendous, so I really want to thank you all. So while we're at it, I can see that Cliff's in the house, and some other guys, Spencer's here, Lizzie's here. Guys, make sure when you come in, hi Ben, put your name in the comment section so that I know who's here. And while you're at it, also put in your where you live, because that will help me to see where everybody is from all over the world. So I've got a lot of stuff to talk about today, and it's all going to be based around soils, guys. And the first thing I want you to do, though, is let everybody know that this is my first live. Share it out on social media. All you've got to do is click the share button below, and that will get it out there. Put it on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you want to put it. Just share it out that that we're live, and let everybody know we're live. So we're going to be talking about soils today, and as we've said before, there are lots of different stuff going on with soils, and I've recently done a lot of videos around the compost side of things, but today we're going to talk about the soil itself. Now there is 6 different types of soil, and they are like a clay soil, sandy soil, chalky soil, silty soil, loam, and there's all sorts of variations in between. So what I want you to do, guys, in the comment section, let me know what soil type you're working with in your allotment gardens or your gardens at home, so that I know roughly what we've got there. Let's get some comments going down below. Hi Cliff from Berkshire. Hi Diana from Swedish Homestead. Spencer, how are you doing, mate? Ben, nice to meet you. Lorraine, nice to see you here. So guys, the first thing that we need to do is think about, let me have a check of what I want to say on here. Okay, so why does having good soil matter? Well, I've always been preaching that you should be feeding your soil and not the plants, and a few people lately have asked me, oh, why do we need to feed the soil? In our soils there are lots of microorganisms and huge amounts of biology, fungals and things like that, and all of these all work in harmony, and there's a whole situation going on in this soil where there are different sort of microorganisms living and dying and then feeding on each other, and they move up the chain, and it's all of this life that actually brings your soil to life. So it's really important that we are able to bring this soil life in, because there's nothing worse than having dead soils. All right, Wayne. So so having good soil is really, really important. It helps with drainage. It'll help with feeding your plants as well, because if we feed the soil rather than the plants, then the plants naturally get what they need. So that's the real important thing here. And also, by feeding your soils and looking after your soils, then we will know all about what pH the soil is, and depending what we put in our soil will depend on whether that pH raises or lowers. And it's always really good to know exactly what pH your soil is, because certain plants will cause some issues. If you put something like blueberries into an alkaline soil, they're not going to like it. So it's really important that we sort of understand what's going on in our soils, what the pHs are and things like that. Lost my train of thought. So to do that, we need to test our soils. Now, there are lots of different ways to test soils. There are little kits you can buy on Amazon or eBay, and those will allow you, the little sort of tester bottles, and you'll put in some chemicals with a bit of soil which you will shake up in some water, and it will tell you what nutrients are in your soil, whether you're high or low, what the pH of your soil is, and that gives you an understanding of what you can grow in that soil or what will do better and well. So it's really important that we test our soils. Now, if you're growing to show or for real high production, things like that, then you may need to do this testing via a commercial testing facility, something like Land Crop Industries. They are really good at testing, and they send you back a sheet which has every single thing in it, all the NPK and all the other elements, the copper, the sulfur and everything else. So that really does allow you to understand what's going on, because people all too often will put feed in their soils that it may not necessarily need, because we all know that over time phosphorus will build up, and you need to flush out your beds and things like that. If you're growing outside, it's not a problem, but when you grow inside in a greenhouse or a polytunnel, then it becomes a major issue. And the ideal pH of soils is between 6 and 6.5, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on. Gareth's saying he has black soil and it's very fine, and sometimes fine soil is really nice, especially if you want that tilth, Gareth, for sowing seed and things. But the issue you have with fine soils is they can compact really well, and clay also compacts well. And also fine soils sometimes have issues with retaining water, so it's really important then to add organic matters. Now, once we've tested our soils, we want to look at the pH, as I've said. Now, it may be that your pH is too high or too low, and we've already said between 6 and 6.5 is an ideal pH for most things. And if we want to raise our pH to make it more alkaline, then we need to add lime or wood ash. And then if we want to lower it, something like sulfur and compost will lower that down for you as well. So you need to understand where the pH is in order to make the amendments that's required for the plants that you're growing. And a few years ago I did a video on blueberries, and some of you may have seen that, and I was putting ericaceous compost into the hole, and there was a lot of people, I was really surprised, who didn't know what ericaceous compost was. And basically that's like an acidic compost. It's usually made up from pine needles and bracken and things like that, so that it stays acidic. But of course over time it rains on that compost, and then that acidity gets washed out, so then you would need to use something like the sulfur then to bring that acidity back down. And by the way, using sulfur is really good if you've got blueberries that are in the ground and they're starting to show a bit of signs of wear and tear. Get some sulfur in and that'll really perk them back up. And also what you will find is that as we spoke about the pHs, as I said earlier on, 6 to 6.5, as you can see from the graph now by here, that is where you will pick up most of the nutrients. That's where the plants can uptake those nutrients right across the board. So, you know, every single nutrient that's available in your soil will be more readily available to the plants at different pH levels. And 6 to 6.5 is one of those pH levels that most nutrients can be taken up by plants, and that's why it's an ideal sort of size to have, you know, on the pH scale. And you know, we talk about sort of pHs and things like that. The first thing that everybody sees is NPK. It's the only thing you see on packets these days, and then in the really fine print you'll see boron, copper, magnesium, and all of these other things, but it's always NPK. You may see an 8-2-5 or a 10-10-10, and that basically tells you the parts of that particular thing. So we all know that nitrogen is for leaf and stem growth, and then we have phosphorus, which is for root growth and early plant growth, and then of course potassium then for your root. But potassium is really good for disease resistance as well, and for the overall well-being of plants. And talking of plants, these guys here, this one here, guys, is the pup from the banana plant that died over winter, just gone, and I never put it up, so it's sitting here at the moment at home, and we will get that into the polytunnel next year. And this is another one that I've just recently I'm saying recently purchased. It was tiny when I purchased it, and this is a red Abyssinian banana. I've never seen them before. They don't fruit that well in this country, and it won't do the cold at all, so they're staying at home this year because I want to keep them in. I'm going to have a little look through some of the comments here. So guys, if you're coming since I've said it, make sure you throw your name and where you're from in the comments, just so I can see. Ben, my 2-acre plot is completely covered in nettles, meaning nitrogen rich. Yeah, Ben, nettles are fantastic as a nitrogen source, so if you've got them, then start making your own nitrogen tea out of them, and that's great. And of course they're nitrogen fixing anyway, so that'd be great. Unfortunately with nettles though, they are a pain in the backside because they really throw out that netted root system. So where are we now? So back on the soils, we need to talk about sort of soil structure and things like that. Now with clay soils, we all know that they compact down. So to break up clay, you need to add sand, and it's no good adding fine sand. You want to add a coarse sand. Something like sand or compost into clay will really help break that up and will help improve that soil quality for you. Likewise with sandy soils, aged manure, humus, and you can even add heavy clay into sandy soils, because that will help give it a little bit of body. And silty soils, again, coarse sand, pea gravel, compost, manures, anything like that will will help with that. So really, as there's a little bit more things. There's some amendments that we can use within there, but we've spoken about a lot of them, which is like compost and things like that. One of my favorite ones of all time to use is leaf mold, and now, guys, is the time where we will need to start collecting leaves because the weather outside today has been atrocious, and we're able to pick up you know, all these leaves from around that are going to be dropping down over the next month or two, and we can be making leaf mold. Now, I've shown you in a few videos on how to make leaf mold, simply collecting leaves last year, put them into these 1-ton sacks, and again, you need to shred these leaves. The quicker you shred them, all the better. Hi Liz, good to see you in. So and you can use lots of different things to shred, and I've got a video coming up later this year of a homemade shredder as well, which is perfect for leaves. So we want to be able to make this leaf mold the best we can, and the finer you shred them, the quicker it happens. Now, I can produce full leaf mold within a few, well, literally within a few months, and it's really good. And as you can see, this is what happens when you shred them, guys. It gets very, very hot very fast. Hi Dolly, hi Jazz, how you guys doing? Jed, Pam, who else is here? Lizzie's here. It's great to see you guys. So with the leaf mold, guys, now is going to be the perfect time. This wind and rain we've been having is going to start turning all the leaves very soon to the autumn colours, and they'll be dropping off the trees. They're already starting to fall now around here, and you know, that's the important thing about sort of amendments with leaf mold. Is fantastic stuff. The NPK for leaf mold isn't massive, it's like 222, but it is really good for adding into your own compost mixes. So if you want to make your own potting mix, or it's ideal for things that need to hold moisture in pots and things like that. So you can blend that in with some coir or some homemade compost. And you guys saw lately that we have done a couple of compost videos, so you know, those are ideal to be using. So have you guys got any questions at all? Hi Nigel and Norman, I've just seen you both come in. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments. I will see if I can get to answering some of them for you. Hi Lynn. Okay, 4 AM Lynn, wow. Well, I'm glad that you made the effort to come onto the live. That's huge. So guys, I've said what I want to about the compost, and because this is my sort of first live stream ever, I'm happy now to just talk to you guys and have a chat about this, that and the other. It's not often that we get to have a face-to-face, and I am planning on doing a lot more. You won't believe the palaver I've had to do just to get this set up here today. All the kids are upstairs and everything else, so so I'm quite good. Right, let's have a look what we got here. Our soil needs different for raised beds. Dolly, the good thing about raised beds is that you're able to control the soil in each raised bed. So if you want to grow specific things like blueberries and potatoes and things like that, then you can split the raised beds and you can tailor the soil in that raised bed in order to be able to get the right conditions. But like I said earlier on, it's really important that you do the testing first so that you understand where your soil is, and then once you understand where the soil is, then you can take whatever actions needed to get the nutrients right for that. Now, with the pH, as we've already said, sulfur will bring soil acidity down, lime will bring it up, and there's various things, you know, you can put compost which will help bring it down as well. But for a lot of things, if you aim for around 6 to 6.5 on the pH scale, then you're going to be pretty much nailing it. There's only you know, certain plants that really like the pH of higher than 7, and there are a few that like it below sort of 5.5. So but the main sort of plants that we're going to grow as gardeners are going to be in that range of 6.5, you know. Gareth Young, hi, how's the best way to grow parsnips? with parsnips, Gareth, a lot of people think that they need to have really fine soil, so that, and like carrots as well, that if it grows, it doesn't hit something and fork. And also a myth is that you shouldn't manure parsnip and carrot beds because that'll cause them to fork, and that is a myth, guys. I can tell you outright, because I've grown straight carrots 3 foot long in just manure, so I know that's a myth. However, it helps if you haven't got huge stones and twigs and things in your soil, but there is no need to really dig that soil over. In fact, carrots and parsnips, they do much better if you leave the soil as it is and then just put a fine layer of compost on top of it and plant your seeds in the compost, and they will send the roots down through that soil. When you're disturbing the soil, what happens is you put air pockets within the soil, and as the root comes down through that, it automatically starts bending around those air pockets to find more soil, and that tends to be what causes a lot of the splitting, in my opinion. Okay, let's have a look what else we've got here. Bear with me 1 second, guys, while I just have a little look through some of the messages. Liz, I want to thank you for shouting out about it in the thumbs up button. Guys, and like I said, this is my first live, so if you haven't already, share it out on social media and let's let everybody know that we're out here. Yeah, Nigel, I've just caught your message, mate. Yes, I'm glad the internet's working as well. We did have that little conversation earlier on about Sky. I wasn't very happy, and they heard about it as well. Deadly 10101, pH of water. Yeah, that can make a big difference. Now, let's talk about water for a minute. We've got taps on my allotment garden, and for those of you outside the UK, an allotment is just a community garden. It's an area of land that's broken up into parcels that is then leased or rented to individuals to grow on, okay? On my allotment garden, we have taps, but I've only been on this site for around about 4 years. Before that, so for the 13 odd years before that, I was growing on an allotment space that had no taps at all, and we had to rely on rainwater. Now, rainwater is much better for your plants anyway, but there is an exception to that, and if you're sowing seedlings and things like that, then if you're sowing seedlings, then you don't want to be using rainwater, because the algae and things that are in that rainwater can then affect your seedlings, and it can cause all sorts of issues. You'll have moss and all sorts growing over the top, and it can also infect the seedling to the point where they'll just wither and die off on you. So use tap water for your seedlings, okay, when they're in their initial early stages, and then go on to using rainwater. And most plants do much better with rainwater anyway, so so I suggest that. And the pH with rainwater anyway is pretty neutral. The only time it's not neutral is if you're collecting water out of a well or something like that, and that water may have the pH altered then depending on the rock that it travels through before it gets to the well, or if you're taking it out of a pond and things like that. So just bear that in mind. You may have some stonework in a pond that may be like limestone, and that's raising the pH right up and making it really alkaline. So those are things to consider. Okay, let's have a look what else is going on here. That one guy, Aaron, thanks very much. I appreciate your comment. Let me have a look. Mark, I've got a cuppa, mate, don't worry. Melody, listening, learning and taking notes. Well, that's what I'm here for. Guys, it's really awkward for me to set up somewhere like this, and Liz will tell you, I've spoken to her time and time again. Eventually I want to be able to go up to the allotment in the shed and do this, because I don't have the space here. I've literally turned my living room upside down, and if you're on Instagram or Facebook and you're part of those groups where I do share other stuff, then I will put some photos of the state of my living room. Tina's had to go upstairs because she can't even sit over in the living room because it's just an absolute mess. And Tina, if you're watching, I'm going to tell everybody now, Tina's a clean freak. She hates mess. So to see her living room turned upside down for this is probably just really griping her at the moment. Dolly, I just planted garlic. First frost is coming tomorrow. Can I still cover it with cardboard? Dolly, don't bother cover it with don't bother cover your garlic with cardboard. There is no need at all. Let the garlic come up. It doesn't even matter if the tops come through. Garlic needs a period of about 30 days to vernalize, okay, and basically what that cold period does is allow the bulb to split into cloves. So don't be worried about covering it or protecting it. Just let the frost hit it, it'll be fine. Even if the tops die off a little bit, they'll just send out another one through anyway. But garlic is really robust, so I wouldn't worry about it. Talking of garlic, guys, I've got a video coming up very shortly on 6 veg to grow for winter. And it's going to be a collaboration video, so keep your eyes out for that as well. Okay. I suggest Ecocentric Homestead says I suggest planting parsnips in the late fall or as soon as the ground can be worked in the spring. Yeah, that's really good because they really need a long growing season. And while we're talking on that as well, don't go harvesting them till after we've had the first frost. I've seen people pulling out parsnips right, left and centre at the gardens here. And parsnips are one of those veg that become much sweeter in flavour. They do much better after they've had a frost on them. So don't be in such a rush to start pulling them. Let's have a look at it. Don't plant shop bought Chinese garlic. Spanish works fine. Yeah, with garlic, guys, I've always wondered why folks don't keep their own garlic and plant their own cloves. Garlic's really expensive. If you grow enough of it, you can hold some back, split it, dry it off, and then re-sow that for the following year. And it does much better than anything you can buy in the shops. And the reason for that is that plant has already become acclimatized to the conditions that you're growing it in. It's already acclimatized to the weather, the soil conditions, the water conditions. It is much, much better to actually save your own seed for any plant. And that goes for potatoes as well. And I know a lot of people say, oh, you shouldn't grow your own save your own potato seed, but there is no problem saving your own potato seed providing you didn't get blight. If you've had blight, then whatever you do, don't save it because you're just going to have compounded issues, okay? But as far as shop bought garlic goes, I think Erica from Erica's Little Welsh garden grew shop garlic last year, didn't have a problem with it, and I know loads of people who haven't had a problem. Maybe Norman, you had a bad bulb, I don't know, but the issue you have with a lot of shop veg is that they're sprayed with sprouting inhibitors, so maybe for once it actually worked. It doesn't tend to work with potatoes because I know loads and loads of people who have used shop bought potatoes and grown them when they've sprouted in the cupboard. They never seem to mind sprouting in the cupboards, do they? Let's have a look here. So Ben, Chasing Horizons. On my 2-acre plot, I got lucky with a natural spring that feeds a stream that runs the whole length of the plot. Well, Ben, again, that's fantastic because you're never going to run out of water, especially in the dry periods. Now, as I was going back earlier on when I was talking about when I had to save all my own rainwater when I was at the last plots because we had no taps, I had the capacity to save 10,000 litres. And I've actually brought that capacity to this garden even though I've got the taps because I prefer to use rainwater. You, Ben, will never have that problem because you've got a spring. It's always going to be there. even with 10,000 litres, because I have such a big garden, I sometimes run out and have to resort to using tap water, but I do my very best to try and avoid that. And if you've got a spring bin, then you're laughing. Right, let's have a look. Kirk Watson. The soil from my no empty pot is laying in a heap. It was compost mixed with topsoil from molehills. What should I feed this soil to get it ready for next season? That would really depend, Kirk, on what you plan on growing in it. But a balanced feed, something like blood, fish and bone. I don't know where you are in the world. If you're in America, I know you can't get blood, fish and bone, but you can get blood meal and bone meal. That'll be the same thing. So just what you want is a slow released, balanced organic fertilizer. And blood, fish and bone is great. We use it loads here in the UK, and that is a good slow release fertilizer to put back into the soil. And you'll have seen me using that loads of times on the potato buckets and things that I use, because I use that as a main feed. And I know Nigel, who's in here as well, can confirm with me, he uses as well with his buckets. So let's have a look what else we got here. Guys, excuse me, having a little drink of tea a moment. Wilbur, leaf miner is a nightmare, and I totally agree with you. I've got a blog coming out on it. I'm in the middle of writing it, so I'm not going to give off too much for you on that at the moment, but keep your eyes peeled for it. But it is a real tricky one, leaf miner, and it can really affect the growth of plants because it stunts their growth. But stay with me, all right, because I've got a whole blog coming out, and it will be posted in the group, so you won't miss that, all right? And if you guys, if you haven't already, get across to my website, ukherewegrow.com. I've been blogging on all sorts of stuff there, and I'm planning on making that a resource where you can all come and read articles. I think I've put 2 articles there this week. One on 60 tips for new gardeners, and that's a fantastic post for anybody who's thinking of coming into gardening. So get across that. It's ukherewegrow.com. Andrew York says, I really find your videos beneficial as a new gardener. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate that. Andrew, like I just said, if you're new to gardening, get across to the website as well, because we've got lots of stuff going on there. And for those of you who haven't, you can sign up to the newsletter while you're there. And on the 1st of every month, I send you out a newsletter, and you'll have links in here for like jobs that you should be doing for this particular month. There'll be recipes in there from Rika's Kitchen Garden. There'll be links to new blogs. There will be stories and memes and all sorts within that newsletter. And we have lots of people who seem to be enjoying that. Richard Rowlands, you look younger on live stream. Cheers, pal. Right, okay. Nigel, Muddy Boots, what's your thoughts on using manures? Well, Nigel, I'm as you can see, I'm quite a big fan of manures. Although we've got to be really careful with this pythoid stuff that's happening at the moment. If you know exactly where your manure is coming from, and what I mean by not just what stable or farm it comes from, but what they're using for treatments for their animals, because I think that's really important. Because if you're putting manures on your garden, and I think they're fantastic to add, and give you some sort of idea, I probably put about 20 ton of manure on my garden last year. But if you're using manures, then you really need to understand what has gone into that manure, because you're taking that on into your plants, you know, and you're consuming it. That's the last thing you want to be doing, guys. So just really be mindful where, you know, what's going on in the in the whole sort of ecosystem that it comes from. You've got cows now that are being fed all sorts of stuff. They're injecting them with all sorts of hormones. You really need to know where it's coming from, guys. But other than that, manures are fantastic for improving the soil structure, and they can help to retain moisture and everything else. Let's have a look what else we got here. Ben, I've got a 3 SIM card. I don't know if it says it on here. No, it doesn't say what it's from. But on this phone here is on 3, and I've been with 3 for 12 years. A lot of you don't know, before I was a firefighter, I managed a car phone warehouse, quite a big one in Macarthur Glen in it's Bridgend it is, but it's near Cardiff, and I did that for about 10 years before I became a firefighter. So I knew quite a lot about phones. In fact, when I first started selling phones, it was like a box like this, and I had a proper receiver on top of it. That's how old it was when I first started selling phones. And then they started moving up, and I'll tell you, the date I got out from selling phones, it was about 14 years ago, and the Nokia N70 was just released. So and that was like the very first sort of smartphone, and of course, and now today it's like you could power the moon with it. It's great stuff. Right, we got a bit off topic there, guys. Mike Manchester, you look the same as you do on the allotment. Is that good or bad? I don't know. So look. If using shop bought, use organic. Oh, I'm taking it, Jazz, you're talking about garlic. Yeah, again, if you're using anything shop bought, organic is the way to go. And if I'm sprouting my own sweet potatoes, and we'll have a video on that coming up early spring as well, guys. If I'm sprouting my own seed potatoes for sweet potatoes, then I always make sure they're organic as well, because buying sweet potato slips are really expensive, like 3 slips for a tenner. It's ridiculous. Hi Jane, nice to see you in here. Ben, yes, I got 10 IBC tanks. There's going to be quite a bit of change at the allotment this year, so I haven't done a huge amount of winter sowing. Normally I've got all sorts going, but I'm taking on all of those horrible sheds that are on the allotment this year. We're moving all the fruit from that lower plot up as well, so there's going to be huge amounts of work, and that is going to mean I'm going to be traipsing all over the plots and things like that. So because of that, I'm going to be building a store shed at the back of one of the plots, and on the back of them we're going to store the 5 IBCs that are currently connected to all the sheds throughout the allotments at the moment, and we're going to take down those sheds and turn all that back into growing. So we're going to remove all of those structures. We're going to have just the one store structure, and then on the back of that we're going to put the 5 IBCs, link them all together, and then that is all going to be pumped down a line which we can have taps right way down the allotment, like we did earlier on in the year. And if you haven't seen that that video, have a look back through the earlier videos of this year, and you will see where we put in trenches and things for lines, and we were able to put in our own taps right through. I think it was the one just after the pergola video. But yes, Ben, we've got 10 IBCs, so we've got 10,000 litre capacity at the moment. Hi Jane, yes, it is a nice surprise. It was supposed to have happened for my 50,000 subscriber, and I think now we're pushing 63, so this is a 60,000 subscriber. Just for you, Jane, that's what we're celebrating today, and you know, we'll deal with that as, you know, as it goes. And I'm hoping to do more of these, because to be honest with you, you know, I think it's a fantastic way in which to be able to sort of have that communication going. You know, I've always been one for having conversations in the comments and things like that, but this is a lot more interactive because I can answer your questions on a one-on-one basis. Let's have a look what else we got here, guys. Guys, put your where you're from in the comments as well, so that I can see. Kirk is from Scotland. Paddy Goes Racing. Hiya, mate. How you doing? And if your name isn't in your channel title, yeah, put your name in there as well, so I know who you are, because I've got to get to know everybody's names. And I'm going to tell you now, guys. All right. I will probably forget them because I've got a memory like a sieve. So, but having them on there, at least I can keep going back and looking at them if I need to. Oh, Liz, thank you very much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. It's very much appreciated. Thank you. Let's have a look at this. Put this towards doing up the shed for live chats. Well, we've got to get somewhere, haven't we? Because Tina ain't going to allow this, I can tell you. Right, let's have a look at what's going on. Hi, Gary. How you doing? Norman's from Inverness. Paddy Goes Racing. How's the chickens? Paddy, you must have missed one of the videos. When I gave up the old plot at the beginning of this year, I did a video saying that that I gave up all of the poultry for the time being, and that was only until I get some more space at this site. So I'm picking that space up at the end of this year, so hopefully we'll get into more poultry again. I wanted everything away from the last site, so I'm now completely, literally across the road here is where it is, and Liz can tell you how close it is to from my front door to my garden. But as I take on this new land, I will probably just go and get another 6 or 9 hens just for fresh eggs again, because we go through loads and loads of eggs. So at the moment, no poultry. We didn't knock them on the head, but we knocked that on the head, if you like, until this is becoming available. Okay. Level 9, what's the crack, people? Well, I don't know, you tell me. Kirk says leaf miner's been having a feast on his purple beetroots. Yeah, loads of people have suffered with leaf miner this year, and I think it's mainly down to the weather. We had that really cold weather to start with, then it went crazy hot, and then for about 6 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it was, and then we had nothing but rain since. That hasn't helped matters at all, guys. Eric Wimantang, I don't know if I said that right. With some of the wind that we have had here in the UK the past couple of weeks, a lot of them have been blown over and snapped. Yeah, we've had crazy winds. Today, I was in work and the trees outside, they were just bending over like you wouldn't believe. I thought they were going to come down. It's been crazy, the winds that we've been having lately. Let's have a look here. Is everybody taking down their beans yet? Let me know below, because I've seen loads of people up here taking down their beans. Now, my normal run of beans have all sort of gone over now and gone to seed, but I've still got my Greek Gigantes are still growing. My Stenna, which are the show bean, the long beans that I grow, they are still going. So I'll leave them up as long as possible. But for those of you who saw the video where the garden was in a mess because I hadn't been at it for 8 weeks, I'm pleased to tell you that the garden is all nice and clean and back to normal. I was stressing out big time, I can tell you. Let's have a look here. Hi Neil Armstrong, how you doing, mate? Welsh Gardener's in as well. Little Garden Diary. Hi Tony, Andy Karen here. We have ground down eggshells and onion and garlic skins and put on the raised beds to add in nutrients. When would be the best time to add them? Thanks. Andy and Karen, get them on there before the winter. If you're not using the bed, any time that you want something done for the bed, stick it on the surface of the bed. Don't dig it in, guys, okay? And this does a couple of things. In the winter, it protects the soil surface from the onslaught of the rain and the wind and everything slamming down. If you dig your garden now, by the time you get back to in early spring, it's like concrete again, it's compacted and everything else, and that's because all that rain is really jamming down on top of it. But put that compost down or manure layer down and you'll really see a massive difference, because that protects it. And not only that, you're adding like a blanket on top of the soil, so the worms will actually stay up even when it's cold, and they'll take that down, especially in early spring. They'll take that down for you. They'll do all the digging, and when they're doing that digging, they are making very small little tunnels and things where water can move around and things like that, and plant roots. So you don't really want to be disturbing that structure, and that's why no dig is so good. I've turned 2 of the plots totally over to no dig, and all I do is literally hoe off the top and then manure straight down on top of that, or compost. And if you've seen the compost video, those compost bins, the last compost video where I built a compost pile, that day I filled all of those bins, and I even had to move the manure from one of the bins onto the garden so I could fill that as well. So we'll have 4 cubic meters of compost, which equates to about 4 ton, I think, of compost that we've made in just this one batch. So yeah, that'll be really good for the garden. Okay, right, look what we got you. Fanny Besser says worms are the key to great soil. All soil life are the key, and that's what I'm saying, guys. Feed the soil and not the plants, okay? And if you're feeding the soil, all those microorganisms and everything, the more life you can put into that soil, the better your plants will be. And by having that life in the soil, the plants will be stronger, because certain nematodes that are in the soil are bad. There are good ones as well, like we spoke about in the slug video, but when the bad ones are there, it sort of jump starts the plant's immune system so that they fend off disease much better. But you have other organisms then will feed on them, and that builds all of the nutrient within the soil, because we can't just add everything. We can add nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus in whatever amounts you want to. You know, we can go and put in 20 ton of manure like I have done. I've done that for reasons, because I'm building soil quality. I want to get the humus that's in that soil and the structure of that soil perfect. But the soil life is there, and by digging it, you're breaking that soil life. So just hoe off the top and try and turn most things over to no dig. I do. That's another reason I like the potatoes in the containers, because I haven't got to dig for them. And I know Charles Dowding, you know, he just plants them on the surface, covers them over with compost, and you can pull them out, and that's a fantastic way. But the yields I get out of buckets, and Nigel will agree with me, and those of you that use buckets, I know you will have had the same success with them. Anna Williams, thank you very much for your super chat. I really appreciate that. That'll go to helping us get some of the sheds and things sorted out. So thank you very much for your super chat. I really appreciate it. Lizzie, you've put that you're from Cardiff. I never knew that. All the times I've spoken to you, I didn't know you were only down the road. Neil's from Stoke-on-Trent. Dolly's from Washington in the USA. Owen's from West Wales. I know I've spoken to you a few times, Owen. Strawberry beds after 3 years, normal, defunct, covered with newspaper and sawdust for new growth. Right, strawberries, guys. Okay, in their first year, they don't do so well. They don't harvest very well. It's in year 2, 3 and 4 that they do superb. They will continue to harvest into year 5, 6 and 7, but it's a diminishing amount of harvest. So the idea is that you take runners from 4-year-old plants, and I know the books say 3, but it doesn't give you a chance, because you're only then harvesting for 2 years off them. So take runners off 4-year-old plants, put them, or 3-year-old plants, put them into another bed and keep the plants there then for year 4. And once they've done year 4, dig them ones out, and then the ones that you did when they were year 3 planted, they are now in year 2, so you get that successional cropping of really good results, rather than go wait until year 4, putting the year 1s in, and you end up with like a year and a half of hardly any crop. And a prime example is that's just what's happened to me, because Liz was very kind and brought over a load of strawberries, and she'll tell you they went nuts this year. There was runners everywhere, but I had hardly any fruit off them. And the plants I had at the bottom in the fruit garden, they got swamped with all the bindweed and stuff that was down there, and because I wasn't there, they just got ruined, so I haven't had the crop off them. But they're now 4 years old, so they're all going anyway. So when we move the fruit up, that's what's going to happen. It's gonna they're going to get all junked, and we're going to take the runners off these, and the ones that Liz gave us last year will be a 2-year plant now, and they'll be perfect for cropping next year. So Douglas is from Scotland, that's great. Happy 001, Tony from Neath. Do you have any advice on composting smaller amounts? I'm chopping up small, but I understand it won't get up to the normal composting temperatures. Yeah, when you're composting, it doesn't matter what happens. If you dump it in a pile, it's going to compost down. It's how long that takes is going to be the issue, okay? And in the compost videos, I told you need to build your heaps high, and there's a reason for that. It creates pressure in the bottom of the heat, and then it holds that heat in. When you've got smaller amounts, it will break down, but you're not going to get that heat build up. It can't physically hold it. So because of that, you tend to turn over to a slow cold composting, and that will work just fine. It will totally break down into compost, but it will take a long time, whereas we are making it in 8 and 10 weeks. That process is going to probably take you 8 months. You know, it might even take longer. So if you can, get a Dalek style compost bin like we showed you in those videos, and you know, and just keep piling it on and on and on, and eventually it will build up. And if not, speak to your neighbours. As long as you know that they haven't had any weed seed in their grass, or they're not spraying with glysulfate or anything like that, then there's nothing wrong with using their cuttings and things like that. And then you can go to work and get the shredded paper out of the paper basket and things like that, and mix that, and that will give you more body in the compost to be able to build that pile a little bit bigger for you. All right. Pam Stout says, can you grow sweet potatoes outside? Yes, you can, Pam. In the UK, doubt it. We just don't have a long enough warm spell in the UK. And even in a polytunnel or a greenhouse, you can get sweet potatoes, but you really need to keep that warmth in, and you need to start them really early. So literally as soon as a sweet potato has a shoot about 10 inches, so a sweet potato slip about 10 inches, pull it off, put it in a glass of water, and as soon as roots appear on that, get it planted out. And even if you have to give it frost protection in the greenhouse or polytunnel, get it planted out, because the quicker it's planted out, the more time it has to get established and get them roots out. What you usually find is people are planting it out in June and things like that, and it's just way too late to be able to produce a crop in the UK. If you're in America and Australia and things like that, you could stick it out, and within 3 months you'd have a crop on them, because they love to grow, but they need that warmth. Why don't you rent a few acres of an estate? Ben, I would love to buy myself a small holding, or farmstead, or homestead, whatever you want to call it. It's just that, unfortunately, you know, I support my family and everything else, and to be able to do that would be my dream. I'd love to be able to go and buy just a 3-bedroom house with 5 or 6 acres of land, and that would be my ideal thing to be able to go and do, move everything at home and work permanently from home, making content for you guys, writing and everything else, because that's always been a dream of mine since being a kid, and the internet makes that possible. And obviously, like I said, I appreciate the fact that you guys support me so much on the channel, and that's growing really fast now. So who knows what's going to happen in a few years time, we just don't know. But to answer your question, that would be an ideal thing for us, is to be able to move and take everything to one place. So Ben, you're renting for £200. What is that? Is that a field, a farm? What are you renting for £200? And is that a month, a year? Let's have a look. Oh, someone's given me a super chat, but it's come up as unknown. Whoever you are, thank you very much. I really appreciate the super chat and the support that you show in the channel. And again, that'll all go towards the channel. So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it. Pam Scott, I've had success growing tubers outside. Yeah, and you know, people do. And I can only give experiences from what I see here. Now, if you live in the UK, you know well, Wales is always wet. We don't have the heat down here. If you're up in sort of far east, sort of Dorset, over in Sussex Way or something like that, then yeah, you probably might get away with it. Hey Diana from Holland, how you doing? Thanks for coming and joining in the chat. What does Anna Williams, what's been your best harvested vegetables this year? It's got to be the spuds again. They're always my best, because I really put a lot of effort into growing my potatoes. Every gardener has a specific vegetable that they love to grow, and potatoes are my passion. I don't know what it is. I think it's just that uncovering those tubers. You never know what it is. You've got all this lovely growth on the top, and it isn't until you cut that off and turn that bucket out or put that fork in the ground do you know what you've got. And it's that surprise I like. And my second would be the marrows, because as you know, I'm trying for a world record. It's eluded me every single year. This year definitely wouldn't even get close to it, because of the fact that I weren't at the pot when they needed the water and things like that, and the feed. But I've got a few good marrows on there. They're probably up around about 80, 100 pounds, something like that. But if I'd been here feeding them and removing all the marrows that didn't need to be on the plant, then, you know, it would have probably been pushing. I still haven't beat my personal best, which is 131 pound on the marrow. So they're my favourites to grow at the moment. Let's have a look here. Welsh gardeners still pulling runner beans. Yeah, it's still really mild at the moment, but the temperatures have dropped over the last few days. So I think you'll find that we may have like a week or two now, and that'll be it, and things will really start sort of going over. Nigel Muddy Boots, have you anything planned in the future for gardening with kids in the community? Yeah, I'm still pushing on doing that, and some of you will know that we've worked with loads of schools and kids. Last year we went all the way up to Norwich when that school got broken into and they had their polytunnel trashed. I used some contacts that I had with companies, and we were managed to get new plastics and stuff, and I went up and actually fitted that, and it took me something like 4.5 hours to get there. But what I'm finding is, when the grow your own sort of phase went on throughout the UK, loads of schools wanted to garden and teach their kids gardening. And now it seems to have dropped off the scale a little bit. They're not interested anymore, and trying to get your foot in the door with those schools to be able to push it is really hard. We still have a school coming to this allotments year, but even when they've come up, they haven't done a lot, and it's been left to the sort of community members within the allotment to actually get that work going and what have you, rather than the kids coming up and learning from the gardeners. They just seem to be pottering around rather than coming up at times that people can be there and garden with them so that they learn. But there are things that are still in the pipeline that I'm trying to work on at the moment, Nigel. Okay. Going to get my garlic planted this week. Any tips, guys? Neil, yes, I've got 2 garlic videos. Go and watch them. That's your first tip. Second tip, loads and loads and loads of people make this mistake. Plant your garlic deeper. Okay, they always plant it with the tip of the garlic sticking through the soil, and it's just totally wrong. Get that garlic down at least the depth of the clove. So if your clove is this deep, you want to plant it that deep. Yeah, garlic does much better when it's down deeper. Okay, you'll get much bigger bulbs, and it has the vernalization it needs, the 30 days, and it'll split fine. So, and it also helps fend off all the other stuff like the slugs and stuff as well. Let's have a look where we go. Terry from Anglesey. I have young rhubarb plants in pots. Do I leave them outside and let them die down over winter? Yeah, rhubarb's really hardy. Why are they in pots? Get them into the ground now while you've got a chance, because they will throw roots down a little bit deeper while we still got a few weeks growing. Get them out into the ground now and let them die down in the ground, and then in spring, as soon before even the leaves come back, they'll be sending them roots down much deeper for you. All right, and if you're worried about them, you can just cover them over with some straw or even a bit of fleece over the top of them, and just put some stones on top of it to stop it blowing away. But get them out in the ground. They're no good to in pots. Emerald Bren, tidy garden, tidy mind. Yeah. You wouldn't believe the state of my mind when I saw my garden after those 8 weeks, I can tell you. Let's have a look what else we got. I'm trying to catch up with you guys. Ian Morris, does wood chip back to Eden gardening work in South Wales? I don't have an issue with wood chip or back to Eden gardening whatsoever, and you'll see on my plot I've got loads of areas covered with wood chip. But if people are going to do back to Eden gardening, they really need to educate themselves first, because I've had so many people messaging me, oh, my garden's not doing anything and this, that and the other, and then you found that they've dug wood chips into the ground and then put wood chips on top of it and what have you, because they thought it was good for the garden. That just robs all the nitrogen. Now, a myth is that if you put wood chips on the surface, it's going to take all the nitrogen out and everything else. You lose about the top 3 millimeters of nitrogen out of the soil, guys. Your roots are far lower than that, so it's never going to affect those. But wood chips are a fantastic way to mulch the garden and everything else. Very difficult to sow seed into wood chips, so you'd have to grow everything in cells first and then transplant it out. And there is a chance of mixing in wood chips when you're planting, but it works anyway. It doesn't matter where you are. What I would say is that you would probably have to keep applying a lot more wood chips here, because it is quite damp here. But wood chips are fantastic for holding moisture. So if you want to try it in Wales, no problem at all doing that. I've got loads. Liz will tell you, my whole fruit plot is just covered in wood chip. Because they're established plants, the root systems are down, and it acts as a mulch and a suppressant for the weeds. Not just about ducks. Your runners are still in. Great. Hi Susie Valentine, how you doing? Composting is fun, and yes, I agree. Add worms to your bins. Yeah, great. Like I said, guys, you've got to build that compost. It's the lifeblood of any garden, and you'll always use it. And what is the point in putting out or giving this stuff to somebody else, or sticking it in the sort of dump area, or whatever the case being? Use it in your garden. Now, a lot of people do what's known as compost trenches. They'll dig a long trench, and they're usually done for runner beans and things like that. They'll dig a long trench, and then they will, they'll go off and they'll dump everything in there and cover it over. Well, the issue for me with that is that that's really down deep, and yes, you've put loads of organic matter down there, but it's in one space of your garden. You're much better off spreading that over the surface, because all of those microbes then take up residence in the soil as well, and they multiply within the soil, so you're actually raising the whole sort of ecosystem around your soils. Let's have a look. Welcome back, Spencer. Melody says her beans are still flowering. California for Susie. Not just about ducks. Do you leave your runner beans to dry? Yeah, once they start going to seed, as we've already said, Wales can be quite wet. They forecast like a week and a half of rain. Now, if they are starting to go brown on the pod, you've got a couple of options here. You can leave them there, but you're going to probably find that if we don't get some dry weather, they're going to rot on you. So what you can do at that point is don't pick them and put them onto a tray to dry them. Cut the plant and take the plant inside and hang the plant up. Now, if you've got a greenhouse or polytunnel, that's a better thing. Now, Liz Zorab did a thing last year where she cut the plants off and left the root systems in the ground, because beans are biannual plants anyway, so they'll grow back next year. And I've done a similar video about 8 years ago, and I know Liz has done that. So if you want to leave the roots in the ground, you can do that. They'll fix nitrogen and everything else, or you can pull them out. It's up to you for that point, but take the plants inside if we don't get a break in this rain. Let's have a look what else we got here. Stephanie, hi Tony from Lincolnshire. I'm new to growing on an allotment. Watch your videos to learn how to grow, etc. Fantastic. Loads and loads of tips in the video, Stephanie. I really try to pack as much information as possible, and I always keep my videos to one subject, because it's much easier for you to find what you want to see when you go back through the videos. There's 9 years worth of videos there, so there's plenty for you to look back on. But for those of you who are new to gardening, or anybody who's into gardening, get across to my website as well, www.ukyearwegrow.com, and I'm blogging on there as well, and there's all sorts of blogs on there. And I've just released one earlier on in the week called 60 Tips for New Gardeners, so that's something worth looking at as well. Lee from Birmingham, what should I feed my my lemon tree? There's a citrus feed. It's a liquid that you can buy and add to water to feed it. There's two different types. There's one for like summer growth, and there's one for an end of summer growth. So you may want to go and get both of those. They're available in all garden centres. You could probably even get them on Amazon. So have a look for that. Any citrus feed will do. It's all pretty much the same thing. So Spencer's building a compost station tomorrow. Fantastic, Spencer. Guys, another thing as well, I've had loads of you asking over the last couple of compost videos how I built those compost videos. I'm not sure if I've got... Let me see. Let me see if I can find it in here. I'll pause it. Them ones there, guys. So... I've had loads of people asking on how to build those. So I've got a video that's going to be coming up, just making up a mock one of those for you guys. I'll take it down afterwards, I don't need it. So, but it will show you how it's constructed, so that if you want to build one of those at home, all of that is pallets, and the whole 5 of that cost me about £12 to make, and that was the screws, everything. So you know, it's fantastic, and they look good as well. You know, if you want to, you know, if you've got them in your garden at home, and you want it to look tidy, you can build this, clad it, and it will look tidy as well. I'm not a teacher. I just absolutely love what I do as far as gardening, and I enjoy sharing my experiences with you guys. I learn just as much from you as you do from me, and that's what it's all about. And that's what I've always said. You know, my YouTube channel's always been a community, and that's why I love it when you guys start commenting and starting conversations down in the comments section below. For those of you who haven't already, get a thumbs up there, because we've had quite a few in and we've only had 67 thumbs up. So if I'm that good, it should be more than that. And you know, like I said, don't be afraid to stick those thumbs up for me, and share this out as well to people, guys. That will really help the channel grow a lot more. And sharing my content out on social media and things like that, and commenting and thumbs up will send messages to YouTube that the content is worthy of being watched, because getting that exposure is the most important part. You know, I can spend 3 days making a video, and even 6 hours editing it, and all the SEO and everything that goes with it, and if no one watches, it's just all a waste of time and no one gets the benefit from it. Okay. Judy Castile, will it harm the soil or future tomato growing if you grow tomatoes more than 2 years as reseeding, pulling up in the autumn but obviously still some root left? Okay, Judy, what I've been finding, I've done loads of experiments, and there's been no issues with growing tomatoes in the exact same soil for up to 4 years, providing you haven't had blight. If you've had blight, you need to either grow the tomatoes elsewhere or remove the soil out and bring in fresh soil if it's inside. If it's outside, it's not a problem. You could just move wherever you're growing them. But I've been no problems at all for 4 years. I've grown tomatoes on the exact same side of the polytunnel. You can go back and look through all the videos, and I have perfect tomatoes. I have never had blight in 7 years that I've had this polytunnel, and the reason being was when I designed this polytunnel, I designed it with windows right along it. And if you haven't seen that series, go and have a look in the series playlists. There's a series on how I built it in there with pull-out windows and things. So right up the whole 34 feet of the tunnel, there is windows, so you can literally pull out the whole side if you need to, and that puts good cross ventilation, and that cross ventilation stops all the molds, the mildews, and especially the blights, guys. So it's perfect for that. So no problems growing tomatoes on a constant basis. You may need to check your soil, and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier on in this video about doing soil tests. Okay, so go and get one of those soil tests, those little chemical ones you can shake up, and that will tell you what's missing out of your soil, and you can make any amendments you need to. Okay, let's have a look what else we got here. Those compost bins look good close up, no trickery of the channel, of the camera. Thanks, Liz. Yeah, Liz has seen the compost firsthand. In fact, Liz came and helped me for a while cleaning up some of the ground after I'd was off for the 8 weeks, and very kindly offered to come down and help me pull some weeds, and we had some great fun trying to pull all the weeds out of the fruit plot. So but in the 8 weeks that it was between the time I made that first compost video, Liz saw what the compost was like just a few days before you guys did in the next video. So bear with me a second. CJ, the answer to your question about beans being biannual, yes, you can leave them in the pots, but you're going to have to keep those pots watered, and they would have been much better in the ground. But if you keep those roots watered, and I don't mean, because there's no tops on them now, you don't want them to grow again, but you need to keep that soil from being bone dry, because in pots it will dry out. But as long as you give it maybe once every couple of months water or something like that, just to wet that soil back down a bit, then they should stay plump and not wither in the pot, and you'll be able to plant them out in spring. And Liz is saying yes, she's had them growing for 3 years in a row. So, and I know when I had the other plot, I had I had them growing for at least 3 years in a row, and they come up much better the second year. The beans, you don't get more beans, but you get an earlier crop. I think Liz can confirm that with me. A much earlier crop than you would normally. Paul Smith, will a plum tree be a match for green gage for pollination? No, mate, it's there are certain plums that will pollinate a green gage, but they're different sort of subspecies of the same thing. I would suggest going to get another green gage. If you don't want a second green gage, have a look who's around you. You know, see if they've got one, or if they're looking to get one. That may help you, you know. But I have heard of people with specific plums. I don't remember the variety of it at the moment, that they've said that has helped with pollination, but I think that's probably down to maybe someone else has put a green gauge in somewhere else. The validity of that I'm not quite sure on, to be honest with you. Let's have a look here. At UK you grow, even if it's not many people see it, still useful to someone. So Spencer's saying even if not many people see the video, they're still useful to some people, and yes, they are, and it'll always be a resource that's online to help folks out and what have you, you know. What I will say, you know, is that if you're making a video, put it online. Doesn't matter if no one sees it, because let me tell you something, guys, if you look back to some of my early videos, how I ever got any subscribers to grow, I don't know, because I look back at them and I'm like, oh my god, why did I do that? And the boys at the station, they especially quite like showing me my Christmas special from about 5 or 6 years ago, because that done the rounds of all the fire stations, and every time I was going out on calls and bumping into them, they were like, oh yeah, we've been watching your video. Hey, carry on watching it, I'm happy for that to happen. Let's have a look what else we got here. Freak on the way, we share, Tony, we share, and like, of course, I share on Facebook, that is. Fantastic. It doesn't matter where you share my content, guys, just share it out. Get it out to as many people as possible, because all I'm here for is to try and make your guys' lives easier when you're in the gardens. It may not be for everybody, because you can't please everybody, and I've had some people will disagree with methods I've used, despite the fact that you know, you've got huge sort of like potatoes this size sat by the side of you that you've just pulled out of a bucket, and they'll tell you that growing in the buckets don't work. And I'm thinking, okay, you know, how does that work? And they'll argue with you till you're blue in the face, but that's for them. Like I said, growing in buckets is for me, for as far as the potatoes go. I grow in the ground as well, but I prefer the buckets or the containers. And then when you've got someone there that can't see it, you're never going to convince them. So all you can do with videos like this is just put out ideas, and people will pick and choose what they want from that. All right, bub? John, let's have a look here. Sorry guys, I'm just going through the chat trying to catch up with you. CJ, you're saying about saving some bean seeds. Okay, I would still do that and back up and sow some of those seeds as well, just in case, until you get it right. Okay, so what I wouldn't rely on those plants coming back just in case. You don't know whether a mole has gone through there and killed them off or anything else. So if you're going to do that, do yourself a favour, mate, sow some bean seed as well. So save some and sow them as well, just as backups. If the other ones come up, then you can give those small young seedlings away to other gardeners or whatever the case, or donate them to a local school or charity or whatever it is, you know. But just do a few backups for yourself as well, mate. The last thing you want to do is find that you get into the middle of sort of spring and, you know, nothing comes up. Nigel Smith asks, would I turn the heaps before it gets too cold, or would I leave them? Nigel, you can turn your compost in December. It doesn't matter if it's organic and you turn it. It'll introduce air and those microbes will heat it back up anyway, okay? What I would do though is probably turn it, once we've had our last frost, I'd probably turn it then and then cover it over and leave it then until early spring. And I think you'll find that if you've turned it once, because it only really needs one turn, if you've turned it once, by spring it's going to be ready for you to use, at the very least a mulch, okay? But if you want to use it in pot and compost, you may have to turn it again in spring, and then a couple of weeks later it'll be ready for you. Ethan Turner's just asked about green manure. Ethan, I use green manure all the time. I didn't use it last year because I wanted to get 20 ton of manure on my plots to add organic matter. However, I'm just about to sow my ground again because, as I was explaining earlier on, I'm not growing so much through the winter this year because of all the work I've got to be doing up there. So the plots that I'm not using for growing in, I'm going to be sowing hairy vetch, which is a fantastic green manure, and it's also nitrogen fixing. And I'm also going to be doing a video on it, so stay tuned for that. That'll be another upcoming video as well, guys. Jane Kelly, I'm looking for garlic recommendations. What do you think? I'm a big lover of Solent White. They're fantastic garlic. They've got great flavour. Province is really good as well. And I tell you what I'm really liking is the elephant garlic that I'm saving. Do you know what? I was in a garden centre a few days ago, 2 or 3 days ago, and I just happened to look at the elephant garlic, and for 2 elephant garlic cloves was $4.99, and they were tiny. They were about that big. I've got elephant garlic cloves like this that are going to be going in, and you'll see that in a video coming up as well. Like I said, the collab video that I'm about to do, you'll see it in that. And you know, I keep my own and I plant my own again, but they're fantastic because they're so much milder than normal garlic. They're ideal for putting into things that you don't want to have that kick of garlic, but you want the flavour of it. So Jane, yeah, the Solent White and the Province are both really good, and I've used them for years. I'm also trialling this year a purple, bloody hell, what's that called? I forget the name, Jane, but I'll get it to you. It's something purple is called. I'm trying that this year as well. Muddy Boots, what happened to my chili challenge forfeit? Did you miss it? No, you haven't missed it. I tell you what's happened is I've had my arse kicked, okay? The 8 weeks that I wasn't here, you all saw the polytunnel where it went like an absolute jungle inside, even though it had no water, and that's because of the soil. That this is what this video is all about. It's about building that soil quality, and because of that it held loads of moisture in the soil, Nigel, and the canopy of the grapes and everything grew something chronic in there, and it shaded out the peppers entirely. Now I have got some peppers, but they won't beat Sean's, because Sean's been there. He's been really looking after his peppers. He's done a fantastic job, and he deserves every win that he gets out of it. So we will do a final video on that, mate, when I can get in the tunnel and get around to it. But I've got some other stuff that I want to be able to you know, to film and what have you first. All right, so let's have a look what else we got here. CJ, message received and understood. Good. So Liz is saying, yeah, a little earlier to crop with the beans and but much stronger plants, and I totally agree. I even went down the road of trying to get stronger plants by grafting 2 rootstocks to 1 plant, which is something I'm trying with marrows, by the way, but we'll do more on that later. But a few years ago I tried grafting 2 rootstocks to 1 plant. It didn't make no difference, guys, on the beans, so don't worry about trying it. And that was when I was trying to get a long bean for another world record that I was attempting. Okay, let's have a look here. Premier Lawn says, I love putting seaweed on my lawns. It's great as soil improver. Seaweed is fantastic, and if you've got a beach anywhere near you, just give your local council a call and ask if you can go and collect it. And you're allowed to pull it up that if it's loose. You know, if it's attached to something, you're not allowed to touch it, but if it's loose, it's great. What I would suggest though is swilling that off, because you don't want to be bringing all them salts to the garden. All right, but seaweed is fantastic as a fertilizer, and very good for potatoes as well, guys. Thank you, Spencer, for sharing the video, mate. I appreciate that. Just trying to catch up, you guys, so bear with me a moment. Right, so Ben, Chasing Horizons, you've asked about overwintering chilies. I've got a video on it on the channel, and I've also got a blog on it on the website, ukherewegrow.com. The blog on the website is written by Dorset Chili Company. It was written for us when we first started ukherewegrow.com, and it's how they overwinter all of their chilies. So that's a really good blog to go and have a little look at, and it is step by step, and it's literally about wrapping and things like that. Now they're doing that in cold climates in the UK, so if you've got a cold climate, you're going to be able to follow those steps and be able to do that. So I urge you go and check that blog out, or you can search back through my videos and find the overwintering chili video there as well, okay? But essentially you cut the plant back and you either take it inside and just let it shoot off quietly, or you wrap them. Let's have a look here. Hey, Food Forest Permaculture, thanks for joining us. Freak on the way, now you know where you can get the information for the peppers. So Tim's saying he's got potato beetle this year. Should I still try spuds next year, or would it be better off leaving a year or two? Tim, how are you growing your potatoes? Are you growing them in the ground, or are you growing them in containers? If you're growing them in the ground, try containers, mate. I have never had anything like potato beetle, no wireworm, nothing in the containers, and that is another added bonus. Not only is the root structure all contained in there, so it has to take up the water and the feed, so you get a better crop, but you get much less pests and disease, and also you can move them if blight is due by any time. So let me know, but if it's in the ground, try the containers. If you add them in containers, I would suggest looking at the medium you're using. If you're using soil, then go away from that and put in a shop bought compost, because those are usually made from green waste, which get really hot, so nothing would have survived in that anyway, and you should be right. Let's have a look here. Food from a poultry. Just bear with me, guys. I'm just having a little look what's going on here. Spencer, he definitely needs to pick up a new truckload of manure, mate. It's good stuff. But like I said earlier on, make sure you know where it's coming from, what's been used in the feeds, and any medications and stuff, okay? Right, Melody, maybe a bit off topic, but my sister's chives in the desert are nearly waist high and reward in large clumps over her garden, so she cautioned me to keep them in pots. Chives can get quite large. The great thing is, though, they do really well for literally just splitting them down. So you can literally just put a spade right down through the center of them and take that clump away. So if they ever get too big for you, literally just go in there with a spade and hack it in half and take half of it away. Either give it to somebody or move it to another part of the garden. But chives are fantastic, especially when they get big like that, because they throw out all those lovely purple flowers that the bees love, and it's a fantastic pollen source for bees. So even if you're not using all the chives, put them off in a wildlife garden somewhere and let them go. But they're really easy to sort of control, guys. Just get a spade and hack it in half and take half away, or even lift it and hack it into smaller clumps and then replant that clump. It's not a major issue. I wouldn't worry about putting them in pots. No worries, Ethan. That green manure video will probably be in the next week or two, okay? I've got some other stuff that I need to get done before then. Wendy said, thank you for the bean information, no problem. Pam, why won't they ship elephant garlic and shallots to Idaho? Why is that? Is it something to do with your fisheries department? Because I know the fisheries department, they control things that go in and out of the states, don't they? So is it something to do with that? Pat, have I talked about my nematode production? Someone claimed you don't even have to buy the nematodes. Pat, I have a video on how to build nematodes. Liz, I don't know if you can do me a favor. Go onto YouTube for me a second if you're still here. Type in the search bar nematodes UK Here We Grow, and it should pull up the first slug video, I think it is, which is the not the blue one, it's the one with the big red slug on it, and that will have all the information in there for the nematodes. Pat, if Liz can do that for you and post it, if not, do me a favor, if you're on Facebook, hit me on later with a message and I will send a link to you on Facebook or Instagram or something like that, okay? But that will explain exactly how to make your own nematodes. And you're right, you do not need to buy them first. All you need to do is look for slugs that are already infected, but the video explains exactly what to look for that as well, all right? Chris, yeah, the new apple seed video that was happening with Hugh, I put the seeds in the fridge and I took them to the plot to sow, and I put them on the side. I had a phone call, and after I finished the phone call, I totally forgot about them. And then I had that 8 weeks off, and when I came back to it, the seeds had gone mildew in the pot I had them in, so I never got around to planting them. But maybe I will get that done for next year. But that's something that hasn't been able to happen because of the situation I had earlier on in the year. So look what else we got. Have you seen nematodes around your way? I don't know if I'm saying this right. Weka. If you find that slug video, if you just type in slugs into YouTube, the number one video is my slug video, which is the blue video, which is like the 6 reasons for slugs. But if you scroll down, this I think it's called Slugs in Garden. And that's the nematode video. So if you find that, it will show you exactly how to deal with the nematodes, okay? You don't need to buy them, so don't worry about that. You just need to find some slugs. Not just about ducks, I've also managed to grow some birdhouse gourds. They're looking great. Should I wait for the plants to die before bringing them into dry? You don't need to worry about birdhouse gourds if you can leave them on the plants, but because of the wet climate we've got, just cut them off, okay, and bring them in and let them dry. And once they dry, then you can start cutting the holes, and they're fantastic little birdhouses and things like that. But yeah, so cut them off the plant. As soon as they look ripe enough, bring them in and let them dry. So a nice, bright, cool place. Don't have them in the sun in the middle of a greenhouse. If it's cool, you know, you can put them in the greenhouse, or even put them in a greenhouse and underneath a shelf, so they're not getting direct sunlight on them, if you get my drift. But you want it bright and cool, all right? Donna, it's really easy to grow grapes in the UK. Have you seen my tunnel? Those grapevines in my tunnel were a twig like this 3 years ago. Okay, I planted it. There's lots of videos on there. I planted them in, and I trained them. I planted them outside and I trained them into the tunnel. And there's a video there on how to espalier them. And then the next year, which was last year, we had fantastic grapes, and Liz took about 20 kilos home with her. And this year I have filled a freezer with grapes, even though I haven't been here doing anything. I filled a freezer, which I'm going to have a go at making wine at, because I thought, why am I giving Liz all my grapes when I can be making my own wine? So they grow really well in Wales. Citrus do really well. I've got a couple of lemon trees that have grown really well, and I've even taken cuttings from them which have struck, and I've got them growing too, so no problems at all. Freak on away. Thanks, Tony, for the pepper videos. I'll check them out. Great, no problems. Not just about ducks, is Angela. Hiya. Right, okay. Right, let me see. Right, Ben. You saw little green tomatoes on neighbours' potato plants. They are not tomatoes, they are seed pods, okay? They're very poisonous, don't ever eat them, all right? Now, there's a reason that they're seeds, and funny enough, I'm going to do a video on this next year. But the seed pod, you can plant them and they will eventually produce potatoes for you, okay? But they don't come true. They're a little bit like an F1 variety, okay? When you sow those seeds, they don't come true to the variety of potato. So that is why in the shops you never see potato seed itself. It's always potatoes as seeds, you know? But what I'm going to do next year is sow some of those seeds, because I've collected a few. Normally I don't get to do this because I remove the flowers, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But I've removed some of those and I've collected those, so that early next year I'm going to sow those potatoes and we're going to see what actually happens. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned for that as well, because I'm going to be doing that next year. The reason I don't normally have them is because I always remove the flowers from my potato plants. If you consider a flower on a potato plant is using energy, because what it wants to do, it wants to flower and then give seed, and that's using energy that would otherwise be going into the potato. So I always remove those flowers. They're not needed. We don't need the plant to produce seed for us, so I always remove them, all right? And that was why, because every year up until this year I've removed them. I didn't this year because for that 8 weeks I wasn't here, and some of them went to that seed, okay? So that's what it is. Don't ever eat them, they're poisonous. Okay. Pam Stout, I have no idea. I'm trying to check. I can't buy grapes online either. Must be in Idaho. Oh, that's really strange. I'll have a look into that for you, Pam. I'm not sure about why you're having such a big issue in Idaho. How to Garden, welcome to the live. Thanks for joining us. Let's have a look here. Right, Pat, nematode question again. Without rewatching the video, which I will do tomorrow, I think I recall a minimum soil temperature for the nematodes. Yeah, it's no good doing it in like early spring, guys, okay, with the nematodes. You're looking at around about 17 to 18 degrees air temperature, okay? The soil temperature will be warm enough at that point. You need around about 4 or 5 degrees in the soil temperature, otherwise the nematodes will die, okay? So wait until sort of May time or June maybe to get this sort of stuff going, all right? Let's have a look what else we got here. 2-acre plot is a field that's only been used for hay. That's a great size, Ben, for that many 2 acres. That's fantastic. And as long as you know that you can do what you want there and everything else, then it's worth every sort of penny, isn't it? Extra beekeeper, don't worry about missing the live. Just thank you very much for joining us. But as soon as we switch off in a bit, then this is going to go to a normal replay video anyway, and you're going to be able to do that. Guys, I've got some t-shirts as well on our website that you can buy. We've got various sizes and designs. Take a look at that. They're all in the they're all either down below this video. You'll see the YouTube bar that you can, the merch bar that you can purchase them from, or you can go to our website and click on the merch store there as well. All right, that'll help support the channel too. And also, if you shop on Amazon, then go through our Amazon link on our website, which will just give us a kickback at no extra cost to you, and that'll just help us to fund things here in UK Here We Grow. Folks, I've been on for an hour and 40 minutes. I think I better let Tina come back down and help me clean the living room up. I really want to thank you all for making this such a fantastic first live ever. I do plan on doing some more of them. I want to thank you all for all of your support. I really appreciate it. Please continue to share the content, keep commenting, keep thumbs up in, because all of that really does send those messages to YouTube that my content is worth viewing, and that's what we want at the end of the day. We want to be able to get more exposure. So I do really appreciate it, and I want to thank you guys who have given the live chats for me as well. I really appreciate that too. That'll be put to good use as well. Anyway, guys, I hope that you've got some value from this. Thank you very much for everything, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye. Now all I got to do is figure out how to turn this off.